With the guide prices just out for Narra Residences, definitely is way below expected because based on the land cost, we should be expecting a PSF of about $2,100 to $2,200 per square feet at the launch, but unexpectedly the developers are launching at $1,900 per square feet onwards. So for some of the units, essentially they are selling at a loss or even at break-even cost. Why this is also interesting is because the neighboring plot, the Botany, they also have a couple of bounced out units and they're selling at similar PSF or even higher. So this essentially creates a price war, and I'll be touching on that as well in the video. So stay tuned if you want to find out more. Alright, so for the overview of today's video, right, I'll be covering on some of the project information for Narra Residences, and at the same time I'll be doing comparisons with its nearby resale and new launch counterparts. For example, D23 Residences, the Botany, just to name a few. So for those of you that's not too familiar with where Narra is actually at, over here I have the map for you guys, and then you can see for this empty plot, right, this is also known as Narra Residence lah. And then right across we have D23 Residences, and also right beside it we have the Botany, which is under construction. And then you can see we are not really within walking distance towards Hillview MRT. Is about maybe 15 minutes to 30 minutes walk, and we are also right beside the international school. And then the other comparisons I'll be taking will be at Hill Haven, which is nearer towards Hillview MRT, and also the Myst, which is at Cashew MRT area. Just to give you guys some better context, right, you can see over here I have the master plan. If you can see closely on the map just now that I showed you guys, it's actually an empty plot of land right now, but URA has already zoned 3 sites out of this empty plot of land. Over here on the right side we have Narra Residences. The plot ratio is at 2.1, and then right beside Narra Residences we have a plot of land that is zoned for education purposes, and then right beside the school will be another residential plot at 1.4 plot ratio, and this land is much bigger than Narra Residences, but of course the height will be lower lah. So this is just some context for you guys to know that the government has already zoned all this land for upcoming developments. And also on the right side you can see there's a couple of lands at plot ratio of 2.1, and the government already cut out the land, but they just haven't zoned it, they haven't started selling it yet. Just to elaborate a little bit more about this residential land that is zoned at 1.4 plot ratio, and it's also right beside the school. This is the 4th parcel to actually launch in the dairy farm area, and is recently released by URA. So I think it's going to be quite interesting. This one can potentially yield 480 units, and then the land area, right, is about 316,000 square feet. So that's why when we compare towards Narra Residences, definitely in terms of land size, it's going to be much bigger. It's going to be quite interesting to see the developers' appetite for this particular plot of land, since we already see Narra Residences at 1020 PSF PPR. Alright, so now for the official guide prices for Narra Residence. Over here you can see for the 1-beders 517 square feet starting from 998k at 1930 PSF. For the 2-beders 560 square feet starting from 1.176 million at $2,100 per square feet onwards. 2 bedrooms 646 square feet 1.284 million onwards, and at 1987 PSF onwards. Okay, 3-beders 818 square feet starting from 1.6 million onwards. The PSF will be from $1,900 PSF onwards. And for the 3-bedroom premium 1023 square feet 2.0 million onwards, and then the PSF will be also 1,009 PSF onwards. And for the 4-beders we are looking at 1152 square feet starting from 2.4 million onwards. And last but not least, we have the 5-bedroom at 1658 square feet starting from 3.8 million onwards. Earlier in the video, I mentioned that this price was actually quite attractive because it was quite close to the developer's break-even in terms of land cost, and even some of the units below the break-even cost. Okay, so here you can see, right, I'm going to be touching more on the land bid itself. So this one is at Dairy Farm Wong, it's a GLS, 99 years, and then it's a plot ratio of 2.1. So the site area is 21,000 square meters. And then the highest bid we are looking at for PSF PPR is 1020, and we have a total of 2 bidders. So after we factor in all the construction costs, marketing costs, financing costs, it actually turns out to be at a break-even of 2029 PSF PPR. So this was quite surprising because based on this, right, usually we will factor in about 15 to 20% in terms of profit margin for the developers to launch the development at. Essentially, it should be minimally at 2002 to 2003 PSF onwards. But what was surprising was that they actually choose to launch some of the units at 1009 PSF onwards. So definitely, I think the developers, for the lower floor units, they're essentially selling at cost price already. So I think this is going to be quite interesting to see the take-up rate for this development. Alright, so now let's have a bird's eye view of what is going on in this particular district. So starting off, we have Narra Residences. So this one, right, expected to TOP in 2030. This is also a harmonized project over here. And then the break-even cost in terms of land we're looking at is 2029 PSF PPR, and then the land size is 21,881 square meters. And next up we have is Dairy Farm Residences. So this one already TOP in 2024. Break even in terms of land price is 1419 PSF PPR, and then the land size is at 19647 square meters. So in terms of size, very similar to Narra Residences. The Botany at Dairy Farm, this one TOP in 2026. Break-even land price will be 1717 PSF PPR, and then the land size will be at 15663 square meters. And last but not least, we have the new plot, right? This one should be TOP in 2031 if they release the land to the developer by next year. And the break-even price, I do expect it not too far off from Narra Residences, probably maybe in the range of 2000 to 2001 PSF PPR. And then the land size will be at 29,444 square meters. And further out, I want to touch on is these two new launches that is still ongoing. First up, we have the Myst. Okay, so this one TOP should be in 2027 already. Break-even price, right, from the land, we don't really have the cost for this because this was not a GLS land, and also it wasn't really an M block because it was a rezoned piece of land. The land size for this is 16,620 square meters. And then at Hillview area, we also have Hill Haven. So this one will be TOP in 2027 as well. Break-even for this will be at 1849 PSF PPR, and then the land size we are looking at is 10,395 square meters. So overall, this is what is happening in this district. And then you can see in terms of land size, definitely Narra Residences is already one of the bigger ones here if you don't account for the new plot that's coming up. Okay, on top of that, it is the only harmonized residential plot in this area for launch right now. Of course, when we go to 2026, 2027, when this new plot is ready for launch, then it will be the second one lah. Another piece of recent news along this stretch will be at Botany at Dairy Farm. This one will be the bounced out units over here, which means people actually forfeited the units here. And this was actually released on 20th of November. I think because the developer knows that Narra Residences, they're going to be launching next year January. Ideally, they don't want to compete with them lah. Now, right, we take a look at the bounced out units at Botany. You can see for this unit 14-29, this is a big 3-bedroom lah. 1281 square feet. The listed price is at 2.6 million. After discount, it will be at 2.554 million. PSF is 1994 PSF. So this one will be considered a higher floor unit already. And then for the 4-bedders, we got the 0230. So this is at 1292 square feet. And then after discount, the price will be at 2.773 million. And then the PSF is 2146 PSF. So when we compare this PSF, right, to Narra Residence, definitely the bounced out units at Botany, I do think it's gonna be quite difficult to move these units because imagine if the PSF, this is a non-harmonized amount, you still need to add about 5% in. Then after we add in the 5%, it should be looking maybe 2001 PSF, 2002 PSF respectively. So when we compare to the units at Narra Residences, definitely if they launch at 1009 PSF onwards for the harmonized units, right, this is going to be quite a competition to sell. But of course, the Botany is going to be TOP much earlier as compared to Narra Residence. So you have to account for the 3-4 years period in terms of vacancy. So for example, if you're a buyer not for investment, but you want to do for own stay, right, you have to factor in rental costs. So after you factor in rental costs, then maybe the Botany might make more sense. But in terms of entry price in 2025 and 2026, right, I do feel that this is on the higher side at Botany for the bounced out units. But of course, we need to see the performance at Narra Residences as well. If the developers launch at 1009 and the take-up rate is not that good, then all the more this one is even more difficult to sell. But on the other hand, if at 1009 PSF onwards, Narra Residences actually sells very well, then I do see that the Botany also being able to move as well. So now that we have gone through the land sizes and also the break-even prices for each particular residential plot, now let's take a closer look right at the past 1 year transactions for 3 bedrooms for each block over here. So starting off, we have Narra Residences, and then you can see for the PSF, just now starting from, we should be looking at 19XX PSF onwards, and then the quantum is at 1.6 million onwards. So this is going to be quite interesting because right below we have Dairy Farm Residences. So this one already TOP about 1 year plus. If next year should be almost 2 years already. The PSF transactor, right, is between 1690 to 1950 PSF, and do bear in mind that this is non-harmonized project, so you still need to add in about 5% extra. And the quantum, the lowest transacted quantum, right, we are looking at is 1.63 million all the way to 2.225 million. So based on this range, right, if I'm a Dairy Farm Residences owner, I'll be concerned because essentially Narra Residences, for the quantum only, right, they are launching same price as a resale project, and this in terms of the lease, we're looking at 6 years gap. Of course, maybe we can argue that Dairy Farm Residences is a mixed use development, but definitely I would say it is too close already for a resale project versus new launch project. That's why I say Narra Residences is going to be quite an interesting opportunity even in this particular area itself. And next up we have is the Botany and Dairy Farm. So if we exclude the bounced up units, right, you can see the PSF transacted in this past 1 year, we are looking at 1929 PSF all the way to 2165 PSF, and the quantum range is between 2.024 million all the way to 2.326 million. So this gives a very good buffer, right, for a project that's going to be TOP in 2026 compared to Narra Residences. That's why I think for Narra, right, their main proposition is that they're selling a new launch at resale prices. And also next up we have is the Dairy Farm Walk, their new plot. This one we don't really have the prices yet, but we do know that the land size and the plot ratio is a bit lower, but the land size is bigger lah. And next up we have is the Myst. Okay, so the PSF transacted here is 1868 PSF all the way to 2279 PSF, and the quantum transacted we have is 1.9 million all the way to 2.477 million. And last but not least, we have Hill Haven. So this one PSF transacted in the past 1 year, 2054 PSF all the way to 2191 PSF. Quantum already done is 1.985 million all the way to 2.515 million. So definitely I think in terms of price support, right, Narra Residences, we are looking at a very comfortable price range for the 3 bedders. So for those of you that is interested maybe for the different bedroom types at Narra Residences and you want this kind of data compiled, right, you can feel free to WhatsApp me at 84849302, because on top of looking at the prices and the land size, I'll be also looking deeper into the site plans, layouts for each particular bedroom type. I think it's going to be quite important because for the Dairy Farm area, right, and especially in this district, there is going to be quite a lot of competition, especially in the resale market. So it is important to be able to stand out, and this particular layout or this project that you're going for is definitely has some unique selling points in this particular district. Okay, so now moving on to Narra Residences project information. Okay, so first up, right, you can see this is a 99-year lease starting from 1st July 2025, and then we have a total of 3 blocks of 6 stories, 2 blocks of 13 stories, and also 2 blocks of 16 stories. Total number of units 540. So this one I have 4 shops with 1 basement car park, swimming pool, communal facilities, and also a landscape deck. Then you can see total of 7 blocks. And then the site area is 21,881 square meters. Plot ratio overall is 2.25 that is used. Number of car park lots 546. Expected TOP 2030. Okay, so over here we have the artist impression for Narra Residences, and then you can see for the 16-story blocks, right, they're gonna be quite close to the 13-story blocks, which is in the middle, but there's gonna be quite a distance away from the lower blocks. I think because they put mainly the facilities over there, but in between the 2 high blocks they also got a lap pool. Yeah, so overall this is the artist impression of the development. We don't have the site plans yet because it's not released yet, but we only got the artist impression to work with. But I think this gives good enough impression of how the development will actually look like, and also how the show model will look like. And over here you can see this is the development plans for Narra Residence. And essentially, right, the lower blocks will be facing closer towards the roadside. Block 50, 52 and 54, whereas block 56 and 58, they are the medium height blocks. And then last but not least, we have block 60 and 62, which is the 16-story floor units. Okay, you can see we are right beside the future development, so they're also known as the education block. And on the right side, we also have have forest residences, and right in front is also another future development plot. Overall, right, this dairy farm area, definitely there's going to be a lot of works going on as well. Here I have the complete breakdown of all the unit types for the 1 bedroom with study, starting from 517 square feet all the way to the 5 bedroom with private lift at 1679 square feet. So for those of you that want to take a look at the sizes closely, you can pause and take a look. I won't go through in depth for this one. It's not going to be that relevant because maybe some of you looking at different bedroom types as well. But just a general comment, I do see the very good unit mix over here, meaning that quite a bit of the units, right, actually cater towards the 3, 4 and 5 bedrooms. Generally, this is what you want to see in a development that kind of have own stay elements, because I think having more 3 bedders onwards is going to be a good mix. It's not going to be heavy on tenants like the 1 and 2 bedders. Okay, so for the overall facilities available, right, I kind of found this in the Q&A one. So you have the 50-meter lap pool, water deck, bubble pool, family canyon pool, kids pool, spa seat, gym, BBQ pavilion, function room. So of course you got all this, and I think you don't have the usual tennis court or pickleball court, but overall I think in terms of the usual facilities that most family use, you have it over there. Okay, so now let's move on to the show unit types. Over here we have only 3 layouts. So the first one will be the 2 plus study. So this one is 721 square feet, and then next up we have the 3 bedroom premium, and this is at 1001 square feet. Last but not least, we have the 5 bedroom with private lift, and this is at 1658 square feet. So first up we have is the 2 plus study, and this is a 721 square feet unit. And you can see over here, right, this is a dumbbell layout. I think quite standard nowadays. Very efficient. And on top of that, you have an enclosed kitchen, and then you still got a little storage space right beside the kitchen area. You got a study area that also can be enclosed as well if you guys want. If not, you can double up as a storage area. I think the only downside about this particular unit will be the bathrooms. They don't have windows, and also the kitchen as well. Yeah, but I think most likely it's a 2-bedder. You don't really do too much cooking, and you still got shops downstairs. Yeah, but the main thing will be the ventilation for the bathrooms. And next up we have is the 3 bedroom premium. So this is the 1001 square feet layout type. So also very efficient layout, quite standard. You got the bedrooms all on one side, and then you got the balcony area. And now, right, you can see I think this one actually quite similar to what we see at the Myst. Okay, for those of you that's familiar, we have a dry kitchen area, wet kitchen area, yard, WC, and then a household shelter. And definitely quite impressive because the kitchen, WC, bathroom, master bath all got the windows. This is quite different from what we see for the 2 plus study. I think overall this is going to be quite an efficient layout. Last but not least, we have the very massive 5 bedroom with private lift at 1658 square feet. So I think this is definitely going to be quite interesting layout, because in this area, right, there is not many 5 bedders with private lift. Like for example, even at the Myst, they have a very good size 5 bedders landscape layout, but they also don't have private lift. So now let's take a closer look. Of course, the top part will be the private lift with the private lift lobby, and then we have a landscape layout for the living and dining area. And for the dry kitchen area, we also have a kitchen island done up already, and the household shelter, and then the side entrance, the yard, WC, and then we also got the wet kitchen area. But something to take note now, the common bathroom and also the junior bathroom, right, they don't have windows, okay? So this is a partial downside. Other than that, the rest of the units, they're all facing towards the same direction as the main balcony area. The master bathroom also got windows. And you can see for the wardrobe, right, they actually did a very big wardrobe in the master bedroom, a very big L-shaped one. But other than that, you need to take note for this area, you must see whether, if you are buying for investment, are you looking at the right demographics that require a private lift? Because I think different districts perform differently in terms of the habits of the buyers. I would say it's quite interesting because not a lot of 5 bedders have private lift, especially in this area. Maybe you can let me know in the comment section, in the resale market, do you think these 5 bedders with private lift will actually do well, or maybe the ones without private lift will actually do better? Alright, so now that we have already gone through some of the project information for Narra Residences, now let's take a closer look at the nearby comparisons versus Narra Residences, and then we can kind of see whether it stands out in the area or it doesn't really stand out, doesn't have much unique selling points. So first up over here we have is Dairy Farm Residences. So the site area just now, like I mentioned, about 19,000 square meters. And the main unique selling point for dairy farm residences, right, is the residential with commercial component at the first story. The plot ratio is the same as Narra Residences. We're looking at a plot ratio of 2.1. And then the GFA is estimated about 400 plus thousand lah. Estimated number of units over there is 485 units. Next up we have is Hill Haven. So Hill Haven is not that unique as compared to like dairy farm residences because it's just purely residential. But at the same time, I think in terms of location, it's slightly better than dairy farm residences because it's nearer towards Hillview MRT. And why it doesn't have a commercial component, right? Actually because we are right beside Hillview, which is also a shopping mall, and also got Hillview CC as well. So already enough amenities in the area lah. So this one has 342 units, and then it only has 2 blocks. One block of 27 story and then one block of 28 stories. It has a swimming pool and multi-story car park. I think this one is one of the, I would say, main flaws lah. I mean, some people they might be okay with the multi-story car park. Some people they maybe prefer a basement car park. So this one really is up to you to decide. Next up we have the Botany and Dairy Farm. So this one was also purely residential unit. It was launched back in 2021 lah. And then the GFA we have is about 300 plus thousand. Plot ratio is 2.1. So it's exactly the same as Narra Residences as well. Number of units 387 units. Okay. So this one you can see basically they got 5 blocks, and then the floors will be between 9th floor all the way to 15th floor. So it's going to be quite similar to Narra Residences in terms of the lowest block to the highest block. They have this graduating kind of feel. Basement car park, communal facilities, and also swimming pool. So as you see, this one already got basement car park. So I would say it's kind of a slight edge over Hill Haven, if for example. Last but not least, we have the Myst. So this one also pure residential unit. Gross plot ratio is at 2.1. And the GFA is about 300,000 plus also. 386 units in this development. So this one, right, you got 2 blocks of 24 stories. So you can see already some differences. I would say Hill Haven and the Myst, right, overall they are much higher in terms of the height lah. Okay, they can even hit 24 story, 25 stories. But when you compare to the dairy farm vicinity, right, the height of the buildings, maybe you see the Botany at most is at 15th floor. Narra Residences also 16th floor at most. If you are looking at maybe unique selling points, then the higher units at the Myst and Hill Haven, they do offer something different. Over here for the Myst, you got the landscape deck, common basement car parks, communal facilities. So it's going to be quite standard. The only thing that stands out, doesn't really stand out here, I would say, is on the Hill Haven's multi-story car park. Okay, so right now let's compare, right, the site plans side by side. So first up we have is the Myst. So the Myst is 2 blocks over 386 units. So definitely in terms of landscaping and facilities, it's going to be very, very good, okay? Because for this size plot of land, you're going to have only 2 blocks. You can see you have a very grand entrance, multiple facilities, full lap pool, and also tennis court along with the basement car park lah. Okay, so next up we have is the Botany and Dairy Farm. So you can see this land size actually is slightly smaller than what we see at the Myst, but this has a total of 5 blocks despite the number of units being almost the same. So you can see in terms of facilities, and I think facilities wise is still quite decent, can match up to what we see at the Myst, but overall in terms of maybe the entrance, landscaping, maybe it does fall a little bit short over here, but it still has a basement car park and also tennis court. And also to mention, right, when we look at the Botany, the units are actually facing the other block. Where else, let's say the Myst, the blocks are designed such that they don't view each other, so your views is kind of be quite unblocked until the other plot of land that's opposite you. Next up we have is Dairy Farm Residences. So here it's going to be quite similar to what we see at the Botany, because you see the blocks, right, mainly they're going to be quite facing each other, and you still got a decent pool in the middle, and on top of that it's an L-shaped land, so you have the other facilities alongside Petir Road that side, and also you got tennis court. Overall this land definitely is one of the bigger ones over here already. Here you still got shops also lah. Yeah, but because it's like in an L-shaped kind of land, right, you won't really feel it that much. Yeah. Next up we have is Hill Haven. So this one is 2 blocks at 342 units. So this is definitely going to be quite similar to what we see at the Myst, because the blocks are side by side. So the views is going to be quite unblocked until the next residential plot. Main thing is their facilities, they are all on the multi-story car park. I think for the first few floors, I think maybe level 5 and below for the residential units, you should be still facing the multi-story car park. But other than that, the units generally, you kind of clear the multi-story car park already. Last but not least, we have Narra Residences. Over here, I don't have the site plan, but you can see based on the artist's impression, you can kind of already gauge for this plot of land, 21,000 square meters, definitely is the biggest out of all of them. But if you're expecting like unblocked views at the Myst and at Hill Haven, you won't really get that. What you should be getting will be closer towards what we see at the Botany or even at Dairy Farm Residences. And if you want a bigger setback one, ideally you should go for the block that is in the middle or the stacks that is facing outwards. Okay, so after comparing the different site plans, let's take a closer look on the different layouts across the developments. So this one I'll be using mainly the 3-bedroom premium as a case study because this is the given layout from Narra Residences, the 1001 square feet one. So first up we have is the Myst. This is coming in at 1033 square feet. So definitely very good size and very efficient layout as well. So you can see here you got a dry kitchen, wet kitchen, the yard, WC, and then you also got a utility. So this utility I think is going to be quite interesting because it also has a window, so it can double up as a helper room as well. But other than that, I think this is quite a standard and efficient layout. Very well done by CTR. Next up is the Botany. So this one is 1033 square feet unit. So of course there's going to be quite a few different 3-bedroom layouts, but I won't be going through all of them. I'm just using what the size is going to be similar to what we see at Narra. So the Botany at this layout, you can see they have a little bit of wasted space at the entrance walkway area. But other than that, they have a kitchen and then a yard area. So quite efficient as well. And you got a study or flex room, so very similar to what we see at the Myst, 1033 square feet or so. Other than that, the bathroom's gonna have their windows and all the bedrooms also facing the same side as the balcony, quite standard lah. So next up we have is Dairy Farm Residences. So this is at 1001 square feet, and you can see over here it's generally quite an efficient layout. The rest of the layout is quite standard. They have a kitchen, utility room, and then also a WC as well. Now moving on to Hill Haven. This is a 1012 square feet layout type. I think the layout also quite similar and efficient. Their kitchen is quite a good size, and they also have like the windows at the kitchen, so the lighting, the natural light still can enter the kitchen from the living room area. Dining area, slightly better usage of space as compared to what we see at Dairy Farm Residences. Beside the WC, you also got a small study area, so this one can double up also as maybe a helper's room or even storage room. Last but not least, this is Narra Residences at 1001 square feet. So definitely in terms of layout, it's very well done. I think it's going to be quite impressive at the show flat, and at the same time you can see actually their concept is quite similar to what we see at the Myst, except they have a household shelter instead of like a utility room. I would say their living and dining area, the width is going to be very impressive as well because it's at 3 meters long. In terms of the entrance, the walkway is also quite minimal wastage of space. I think overall, in terms of layout, it's still going to be quite strong when compared to the neighboring plots. Okay, so this is my own opinion for Narra Residences 1001 square feet layout type. Maybe you can leave in the comment section which one do you think is the most superior layout over here, because I think probably the top two will be at the Myst and also Narra Residences. After comparing the different site plans and also the layouts, you can kind of see where Narra Residences actually rank in this district. So now I want to cover is on the Dairy Farm Residences demand and supply, because I think this is the most recent project that hit TOP, and I think it's very representative of what's going on the ground over there. Do bear in mind that Dairy Farm Residences, you are competing with multiple new launches nearby. You can see from here how they actually perform. Okay, so here we have probably Guru, 34 units for sale for the 3 bedrooms at Dairy Farm Residences, and also in the past 12 months we have a transactions count at 10 and average price was at 1.88 million, 1870 PSF. In the latest transaction was at 2.1 million, 1841 PSF. Unit is 1141 square feet unit type. So overall, I think in terms of demand and supply, definitely here not the best. I think it's quite obvious because there's quite a few new launches that they had to fight with. I think overall in the past 12 months you still have 10 transactions and you still got 34 units on sale. Means probably worst case scenario your unit might take like 2-3 years to sell. But if you're on the better price side or you have certain unique selling points, your unit should be able to move faster. Okay, so now we'll be discussing on the profitability of these units, right? So in the past year, you can see the units typically range the profits from about 200 plus thousand to 300 plus thousand range. I would say the 67k profit one, right, is really anomaly. The rest should be still in the 200 to 300 plus k range. I think I'll take that as the norm lah, yeah, because at the 60 plus k range, I think this is really quite an anomaly. Of course, when you compare to the rest of the market, it's not as strong in terms of profit margin, but I think overall in terms of quantum gain, right, I think it's still quite decent. On top of all this, I'm going to be discussing a little bit more about the master plan. So just now, like I mentioned about Narra Residences, the plot ratio 2.1, and then you got the education plot, and you got the plot ratio 1.41 that just released. And on top of that, right, you can see the other parts that I've circled. There are all these plots that is not released yet by the government, but they are already zoned as residential plots. So in terms of the upcoming supply, definitely you still have a few plots coming up. I would say it still forms a very good price protection in terms of PSF, but of course it really depends on how much developers bid the land at and how much they actually launch at. There is a bit of uncertainty here, I would say, because we did see that Narra Residences actually launched almost same price or even cheaper than the bounced out units at the Botany. Maybe you can leave in the comment section what is your perspective on this area, because I would say usually with new plots, right, it should be able to push up the price higher, but unexpectedly this actually was selling at the resale prices in this area. I also want to touch a little bit on the recent OCR land bid prices. Over here I have the plot at Tanah Merah area, all green, tops 10 bids for Bedok Rise GLS site at 1330 PSF PPR. So this one was bidded in late November, and the break even we are looking at is 2449 PSF, and I really think for Tanah Merah area this might not make sense, because in the end, if you guys have been in the market, you kind of know like actually Tanah Merah area, right, hasn't been performing that well. Realistically speaking, you can go and see, I think only maybe like Grandeur Park is one of the more better performing ones, but generally because this area is quite saturated with condos, so as a result, the performance there is not as strong, and a lot of the units there, from what I know, actually they are being rented out to the maybe Changi Business Park people or the air stewardess kind of profile. For them to actually acquire this land at the break-even price of 2449, it means that they need to launch it at probably 2,700 PSF onwards for Tanah Merah. Okay, and this one should be looking at 2027 to launch. So right now, if you compare this to what we see at Narra Residences, right, this almost provides a $800 PSF in terms of buffer lah. Okay, but of course we won't know until they actually launch, but this is my estimate. I think in 2026 and 2027 the OCR prices is going to be drastically different as well. Okay, so last but not least, I just want to touch a little bit on the Sand as well. So the Sand recently launched in mid-November. I think the launch definitely was a little bit different from what we were used to, 80% sellouts, 90% sellouts in the month of September and October. So for the Sand, right, actually only moved 80 units and about 23% on launch weekend, averaging a PSF 2358. My guess is actually Narra Residences, if you look at the land bid price and the break even, right, by right they should be launching at 2122, but maybe they saw the performance at the Sand at 23% for 2003 PSF range. Can you imagine what will happen to Narra Residences take up rate if they were to launch at 2122? Because essentially it's at OCR versus the Sand, which is RCR, and if they launch at that price, right, I won't be surprised if they actually have the similar take-up rate as the Sand. So I think at the same time, I'm not surprised that the developer launched at 1009 because they wanted to move the units. So yeah, we have to see for January how it actually pans out in terms of the sales. And for those of you that's interested in Narra Residences after watching my video, you can feel free to reach out to me at 84849302. So if you like this kind of deep dive analysis, you can feel free to check out my YouTube channel where I've done similar type of analysis for other new launches as well. And also, if you like my video so far, you can feel free to leave a like and subscribe, okay? Looking forward to hear from you guys. Alright, cheers, bye!